Hey guys, I've wanted to do this for a while and I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to do a draw my life. I've got my dry erase board and I've got markers and I've got tiny little erasers that are too small to use very quickly, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to try to sync it up somehow so it makes sense and it looks okay. And yeah, alright, so here we go. I was born in the year of our Lord, 1985. In a city called Amarillo. My parents were sort of hippies. They were stoned all the time. My dad would drink a lot. Some nights, my parents thought it would be funny to give me and my little brother John shots of Crown Royal to try to help us go to sleep. It was disgusting, even though I'm told it's top-shelf liquor. My childhood was filled with playing in the backyard and getting straight A's. We had a swing set and a tree fort in the backyard that was literally made of trees. There were just a bunch of trees that had grown really close together. You just kind of had to slip between them, and then you're in a little fort type thing. In the summers, we would take trips to Arkansas to visit family or New Mexico to visit the mountains. It was a great time. When I was 8, we moved down the street, literally a block away from the house where I had grown up until that point. Shortly after we moved, my mom got sick. At least that's what I thought. Apparently, she had had lupus since she was a teenager. She was in and out of the hospital so much that when we weren't in school, like over the summer, we would stay at our grandmother's house that was about an hour away. On one hand, it was really fun. We'd watch cartoons and eat Dairy Queen and donuts almost every day. The obvious bad side was, getting really fat. Not that it's all on her, but it certainly didn't help. In 1998, my mom was doing better than she had in a few years, so we actually got to be home all summer. One night, my mom didn't feel well, so my dad took her to the doctor. 2 hours later, my dad came home and told us that my mom was gone. As I sat there crying, my brother said, "At least we'll save money on food." My brother was always the one to make jokes, especially when it was inappropriate. My dad tried his best to raise us on his own, but he had only ever done half the job. He was devastated and he felt really alone. He would hit us and smack us around and cry and say he couldn't believe that my mom had left him alone. Just 2 months after my mom died, my dad started dating the woman that's now my stepmom. I hated her. Of course I did. I was barely 13 and my mom had just died. She was great though. She took care of me like I was her own from day one. They got married about 6 months later and I had a new family. 2 new brothers and a sister. A couple of years later, in 2001, my brother got sick over spring break. We didn't know what he had. We just knew he had a bad temperature and he had rashes on his legs. We went to our family doctor and they gave us some ointment for the rashes and antibiotics for the fever. A few days later, it was all even worse, so my parents took him to the ER. Later that week, we found out what was really wrong. My little brother had leukemia. He went through all kinds of treatments. At one point, they even induced a coma that he was in for almost a month. Then after he woke up from the coma, they started doing rehab so that he could start moving his limbs again. And the doctor told us that he had a 95% chance of pulling through. They'd even had me come in and test my blood one morning for a possible blood transfusion. The next evening, he was gone. And that's how I started my summer vacation in 2001. A couple of years later, after staying the night at a friend's house, my stepmom showed up early in the morning to take me home. At first, I thought I was in trouble for something, but it turns out that my older brother, Zach, had just died. His girlfriend had taken their daughter and abandoned him in Las Vegas. He had brain cancer, and they didn't find it until it was too late. You may have noticed that I hadn't mentioned my brother Zach before. He was actually a half-brother from my dad's previous marriage. I'd only met him once, but it still crushed me that he was gone. That's when my dad got worse into drugs and alcohol. My stepbrother and stepmom couldn't live there for a while. We ended up just being homeless for a while until my dad got arrested and we had a restraining order put on him. Things had been worse than I'd like to admit. When he got out of county jail, he moved a couple of hours away. A few months before I graduated high school, my dad confessed to some crimes he had done and was sent to prison. Because of that, my dad didn't get to see me graduate high school. About a year later, my dad got out of prison, and we let him come home. Then he died too. Just kidding, he's fine, and he's been great ever since then. A couple of years later, my grandmother passed away, the one that used to take care of me and my brother when my mom was sick. Because my mom had already passed away, and my brother had passed away, her estate was split between my uncle and myself. Basically, I owned the house that I lived in already, and he got the house that he lived in. The will took a while to, get sorted out, but right after it was taken care of, my uncle got into a car accident. After months of being in the hospital and fighting off sickness, he passed away too. The last time I ever spoke to him, he told me I was a worthless piece of crap and a terrible nephew because I hadn't been paying all of his bills for him. One of my greatest regrets is that I never got to make up with him before he died. Some months later, my friend Mickey found out how much PewDiePie was making on YouTube and decided that we should have a YouTube channel. And here we are on YouTube, except he's nowhere to be found, and it's just me. And that's it. That's my entire life. I can tell you literally every significant thing that happened to me in less than 9 minutes. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in whatever I do next.